Are you having a hard time getting listeners to your podcast? Is the bulk of your time spent on content creation, leaving you very little time for marketing or promotion? If you answered yes to either of those questions, then you should do what I did and reach out to Pod Boost Hub on Upwork. Pod Boost Hub brings you 100% organic promotion services. Pod Boost works around your budget and your needs. Contact them today on Upwork or even on Facebook. Pod Boost Hub. Your content, your audience, their responsibility. Hey there, listeners. Are you ready to elevate your energy game? Let me introduce you to Dubby, the energy drink brand on a mission to help you be better. Dubby is designed to give you the boost you need without the jitters or crashes that accompany many of the drinks supplied by Big Energy. Their drinks are sugar-free, calorie-free, and free from artificial colors or dyes. They launched with just one flavor, but thanks to the support of their loyal customers, they've grown to offer over 15 unique custom-made flavors. So if you're looking for a clean, delicious energy boost that helps you power through your day, look no further than Dubby. Join the movement and experience the difference for yourself. Visit WGG and use the code WW1POD for a 10% discount on your order. Remember, with Dubby, it's all about being better, one sip at a time. Alright, bills are paid. Let's get on with the show. I'm Henny B, and welcome to the World War I Stories podcast, where history comes alive through the voices of those who lived it. Some scenes in these stories may be too graphic for sensitive listeners, so listener discretion is advised. Today's episode, In the Name of Service. The cacophony was almost unbearable for Clara. Until now, she had never questioned her decision to serve her country by working at the armory, but the overwhelming noise filled her with a dreadful doubt she hadn't anticipated. Standing in the doorway of the large facility, she watched as the clattering of machinery, the shouts of foremen, and the constant hum of activity created a chaotic symphony that reverberated in her ears. The sight of so many men and women working feverishly was both intimidating and inspiring. It was inspiring because she knew that they, like her, were all doing their part for the war effort, supporting the boys overseas fighting the Hun. Intimidating because she felt uncertain about her ability to keep up with the speed and efficiency of her fellow workers on the factory floor. As Clara took in her surroundings, she noticed the workspace was dimly lit, with only a few rays of sunlight filtering through the grimy windows near the ceiling. Just then, she spotted the woman she had been searching for. "Rose," she called out, her voice struggling to rise over the clamor of the factory. Miraculously, Rose heard her and began to navigate her way through the shadowy, cluttered warehouse. Clara had met Rose only once. That was when she interviewed for the job. "Clara, right?" Rosa asked as she approached while consulting her clipboard. Her voice strained from competing with the noise. "Yes, ma'am," she yelled back. "Follow me," Rose instructed. As Rose led Clara through the maze of workbenches and machinery, the cacophony of the factory enveloped them like a living entity. The rhythmic clatter of tools and distant roar of machines created a backdrop that was both exhilarating and overwhelming. Clara's heart raced with a mix of anticipation and anxiety as she followed Rose, her eyes darting from one bustling station to another. "Here we are," Rose said, stopping at a sturdy wooden workbench that bore the marks of countless hours of labor. The surface was cluttered with tools and parts, each one essential to the task at hand. "This is your workstation. You'll be assembling 75mm artillery shells, which are crucial for our troops on the front line." Clara's gaze fell on the array of components laid out before her. Steel casings, fusings, and explosive charges, all waiting to be transformed into powerful munitions. "It looks like a lot," she admitted, her voice barely audible over the factory's din. Rosa smiled reassuringly. "It can seem daunting at first, but once you get the hang of it, you'll find a rhythm. Let me walk you through the process." She picked up a steel casing, its surface cold and smooth in her hands. "First, you'll start with the casing. This is the shell's body. It's where everything comes together. Your job is to ensure that each component fits perfectly." Clara nodded, her eyes wide with concentration as Rose continued. Next, you'll insert the fuse. This is what ignites the shell upon impact. It's crucial it's secured tightly, otherwise it won't function properly. You'll use this wrench to tighten it, she explained, demonstrating the motion with a practiced ease. After that, you'll add the explosive charge, Rose said, her tone turning serious. This is the heart of the shell. You'll need to handle it with care, as it's sensitive and can be dangerous if not treated properly. Always remember, safety first. We can't afford any accidents here. Clara felt a shiver run down her spine at the thought of the explosive charge, but Rose's steady demeanor reassured her. Once everything is assembled, you'll inspect the shell for any defects. Quality control is vital. Each shell must be perfect before it leaves this station. As Rose spoke, Clara's initial trepidation began to fade, replaced by a sense of purpose. She could see the importance of her work, the lives that depended on the shells she would assemble. I can do this, she thought, determination settling into her chest. Now, let's get you started, Rose said, stepping back to give Clara room. I'll be right here if you have any questions. Remember, we're all in this together. With that, Clara took a deep breath, ready to assemble the challenge ahead, her hands poised to transform raw materials into instruments of hope for the soldiers fighting far away. Over the next 12 hours, Clara worked feverishly and as a result assembled 65 75mm shells, a far cry from the 114 the woman next to her assembled. Still, she felt proud, accomplished, and many workers exclaimed that she had done well for her first day. She lived 2 miles from the factory on Baldwin Street. The walk that had taken her 30 minutes that morning stretched to 40 after a grueling 12-hour shift. She felt utterly exhausted. She lived with her parents, Seymour and Lena Fraser, in a modest craftsman bungalow in the developing neighborhood known as Forest Park in Springfield, Massachusetts. Her father was a skilled carpenter, and his salary was more than enough to support their small family of 3. The home smelled of freshly fried cod, and she became famished at the first whiff of the delightful scent. Her father sat in his usual seat at the dinner table, his face buried in the local newspaper as usual. Her mother, however, was busy tidying up after cooking. "Clara, my love." She sat her rag down and moved across the room to embrace her now 18-year-old daughter. "How was your first day?" Clara settled into the embrace before breaking away and taking her seat at the table. "Long, but actually fun. I learned a lot." Her father dropped the paper just below his eye level and looked at her. "What do they have you doing over there?" This was a loaded question, she knew. Her father was a staunch pacifist who was strictly against this or any other war. Clara felt a knot tighten in her stomach, but in spite of her apprehension, she began. "I'm assembling shells, 75mm. I only made 65, but some of the girls that had been there longer made well over 100 each. They're really fast." Her father put the newspaper down, a frown creasing his brow. "They'll go through all those in a half hour on the front line, or so I hear. I'm glad you're working, Clara, but I wish you could be doing something that didn't result in killing." His voice was heavy with concern, and Clara could see the conflict in his eyes. She understood his perspective. The weight of his pacifist beliefs were pressing against the reality of the world outside their home. Clara looked down at the plate in front of her. It smelled so delicious. "I know, Father, it's not ideal, but it's a way for me to help with the war effort. You of all people know that they're asking all of us to do our part." She watched as a warm smile appeared on his face. "My dear, you aren't obligated to share my beliefs. I'm very proud of you for what you're doing. Yes, I wish you did something else, but that's my problem, not yours. Now eat and go get some sleep. You have to do it all over again tomorrow." He held out his hand to her, and she took it. "Thanks, Papa. I love you." She had eaten quickly and now stood in front of the floor-length mirror, brushing her hair as she readied for bed. She heard a light knock on the door to her room. "Come in." She glanced over to see her mother walk in. "Thought you may want some tea before bed." She was right. Clara did want tea before bed. "You know me so well, Mother." She set the hairbrush down on her dresser and sat on the edge of the bed, taking the cup. Her mother stood by the bed looking down at her with a smile. You know, when I was your age, I was already preparing for marriage. I would have worked if I could. I'm glad you have the opportunity to do this." Clara shook her head knowingly. "Too bad it took a war to allow it to happen." "One other lesson you get to learn early on, my dear," her mother added. "What's that?" she asked. Her mother's smile widened. "Men are stupid." And with that, she kissed Clara on the head and left the room. Clara sat in silence for a moment, reflecting on how things had changed so quickly. Just a year ago, the odds of her landing a job at the armory, or any job outside of teaching and nursing, was unthinkable. Today, she assembled shells. She had done a job that had been almost exclusively done by men. She fell into a deep slumber while still smiling. As the weeks and months wore on, Clara found herself immersed in the rhythm of the armory, her hands becoming adept at a variety of tasks. She assembled shovels for a month straight, the repetitive motion becoming second nature, before moving on to more intricate work of manufacturing grenades for 2 weeks. Each item she tackled brought in its own set of challenges. But Clara was an eager learner, hungry for knowledge and experience. She thrived on the camaraderie of her fellow workers, sharing tips and tricks and celebrating each small victory together. Today, however, marked a significant turning point in her journey. After 7 months of hard work, she was finally being entrusted with the assembly of the tool that the doughboys relied on the most, the Springfield M1903 rifle. The weight of this responsibility settled on her shoulders, a mix of excitement and apprehension whirling within her. The air in the rifle assembly area was thick with the scent of oil and metal, punctuated by the rhythmic clanking of machinery and the focused chatter of her coworkers. She could see the rifles in various stages of assembly, each representing not just a weapon, but a lifeline for the soldiers fighting on the front lines. Mr. O'Neill, the supervisor, approached with a nod of approval. "Today's a big day for you, Claire. You'll be working on the M1903 rifle. Are you ready?" Clara straightened her back, trying to hide her fear of failure. "Yeah, I'm ready," she replied, her voice steady despite the flutter of nerves in her stomach. Mr. O'Neill guided her to a workstation equipped with all the necessary tools and components. "You'll be responsible for attaching the barrel to the receiver. It's crucial that it's done correctly, as this is the heart of the rifle. Take your time, and don't hesitate to ask questions. Here, let me show you how it's done." She watched as he went about the task of carefully aligning the barrel with the receiver and securing it in place with a fastener he called a barrel nut. When he finished, he put the assembly in a tote and slid it over to the next station. "Now, you try." Clara nodded, her heart pounding with a mix of pride and responsibility. She took a deep breath and began her work, carefully aligning the barrel with the receiver, her fingers deftly maneuvering the components. The weight of the parts felt significant in her hand, a tangible connection to the man who would soon rely on her craftsmanship. It took her substantially longer than it did Mr. O'Neill, but she eventually finished the assembly and sent it on its way down the line. Without hesitation, she grabbed another and proceeded to repeat the process. She had done this 4 times before she realized that Mr. O'Neill had left to attend to other business. She put her head down and continued. As she worked, Clara found herself lost in the rhythm of assembly, her mind focused solely on the task at hand. Each click and snap of the parts coming together felt like a small triumph. She was no longer just assembling tools. She was contributing to the war effort in a way that felt deeply meaningful. As the day drew to a close, Clara and the other girls on the line celebrated their small victory. Today, in 12 hours, they had assembled 212 rifles, which was just over the expected output of 200 that management expected from the line. As Clara left for home, she vowed not to tell her father that she had been assembling rifles, just as she had never mentioned the grenades. It wasn't that he would be disappointed in her, rather she chose to keep it from him so he could sleep better at night. He never said so, but she imagined he would find the thought of his daughter making weapons deeply unsettling. Shells fired from a distance felt impersonal, but guns and grenades were much more intimate killing tools, and she was determined to protect him from the knowledge of her involvement in such a personal way. As the months passed, Clara began to realize that she had a true talent for her work at the armory. She felt a growing sense of purpose and clarity about her future. One day, she sought out Mr. O'Neill, who was seated at a desk near the production line he supervised. "Mr. O'Neill, do you have a moment?" she asked, her voice steady despite her nerves. He looked up from the projections he had been reviewing and replied, "Of course, Clara, what can I do for you?" Clara fidgeted slightly, gathering her thoughts. "Sir, I really love this job. I want to know what it would take for me to advance here. I believe I could lead a team or even take on supervisor or managerial role, or perhaps become an engineer." Mr. O'Neill leaned back in his chair, clasping his hands behind his head. "Is that so?" he said, a hint of skepticism in his tone. "Yes, sir. I'm a fast learner, and as you know, my work has constantly met the highest standards. I've contributed to improvements in every area I've worked in. I want to stay here and grow in my career." Her heart sank when he stifled a laugh. "That's admirable, Clara. But you need to understand that this war won't last forever. When the soldiers return, they'll need jobs, and you women will have to go find something else to do." Clara straightened, her determination rising. "But someone will need to train those soldiers, right? Why can't I be that person?" "Because you can't," he replied, his tone dismissive. "No man, especially one returning from war, is going to take orders from a woman. You need to be realistic. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a meeting to get to." He stood and walked away, leaving her at his desk. That night, as she lay in bed, Mr. O'Neill's words echoed in her mind, intertwined with her parents' opinions. She had come home dejected, barely touching her dinner of pork chops and potatoes when her mother prodded her about what was troubling her. Clara let it all out. She had expected sympathy from her parents, but instead she received more unwelcome opinions. "You can always try becoming a teacher or a nurse," her mother suggested. In that moment, Clara felt a surge of frustration. Every woman she knew seemed to be either a teacher or a nurse, and she didn't want to fit into that mold. She was meant for something more. But it was her father's words that truly deflated her. "Or you could do what your mother did. Get married and let the man of the house do the important work. Let's face it, a woman's place is in the home, and the only reason you even have this opportunity is because of the war." Now, as she lay in the darkness, those words replayed in her mind like an ominous chorus, reminding her that her future seemed predetermined. Even if it was a future she was determined to resist. She continued to work and petition Mr. O'Neill and other members of management for permanent opportunities throughout the summer and fall, all to no avail. They would not make any determination on her or any woman's future at the armory until they knew how many men were coming home and when. In November of that year, as winter came knocking at the door, it was announced that an armistice was signed and that hostilities were to cease. Mr. O'Neill gathered the entire workforce for an announcement. "As you have all probably heard by now, an armistice was signed late last night and took effect at 5 a.m. our time this morning. This ceases hostilities in Europe. Unfortunately, this also means a significant drop in expected output, which in turn means a significant drop in the workforce required here. Effective immediately, any employee who is female in gender will have to vacate the premises and seek employment elsewhere." Clara could barely hear herself think over the bruise and discourse of being displayed by the women that had worked so hard over the last 2 years. He had tried to warn her. So had her parents. Now the time was here, the end of the war, and her employment realized. She stood and watched as the protest fell on deaf ears, and then looked on as the procession of women started towards the door and exited the facility. And with a heavy heart, she followed. This has been World War I Stories, Tales Beyond the Trenches. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the show wherever you find this podcast, and don't forget to throw us a comment and a rating. We are on Facebook. Just search and like the official World War I Stories page.
You can also join me on Blue Sky, where I go by the handle WW1stories_HannyB. World War I Stories is now featured on Rabbit in Red Radio, with new episodes streaming Monday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. They also have all episodes available on demand. Visit Rabbit in Red Radio for this and many other independent podcasts. And last but not least, would you like your name read on the show? Become a producer by contributing to our Patreon at patreon.com World War I Stories. I'm very grateful to everyone who downloads and listens to this show. I'm Henny B, and see you next time on World War I Stories.